I made it and I tasted it and I'm like, you would not miss the meat. There aren't a lot of Cuban vegans out there. I don't think so. Maybe there are. People have changed a lot in what they choose to put in their bodies. So I really wanted to make it accessible to everyone. There is a lot of things in there without straying too far from the traditional food.
I'm Dalia Colon, and this is The Zest. Citrus, seafood, Spanish flavor, and Southern charm. The Zest celebrates cuisine and community in the Sunshine State. Today, whether she's in the courtroom or in the kitchen, she always brings the heat. Today, we're getting to know Ana Quincoces. Long before she was a cast member on The Real Housewives of Miami, she was an attorney and an avid foodie. The daughter of Cuban immigrants, Ana chatted with me about the latest of her 4 cookbooks, Modern Cuban.
They say you write what you know, and I absolutely know Cuban food because I grew up on it. And when you're Cuban, you wake up to that relaxing sound that only a pressure cooker can make, because every meal consisted of beans or a stew or something like that, because if not, it's not a meal. It's got to be hearty. It's got to stick to your bones. It's got to stick to your bones for a lot longer than you want it to stick to your bones, like the rest of your life. My family was always in the kitchen, and I remember thinking that was terrible. I thought, why does my mom get stuck in the kitchen while everybody's having fun? I am never going to do this. Famous last words.
Yep.
Because I realize now that she was having the best time. I think if you're born like a nurturer, they used to say like Cuban women are nurturers. Not all of them. There are some that just, dude, make your own sandwich, But even if it's a grilled cheese or a BLT or whatever, it's got to be really, really good. And it's got to be made with heart. I know everybody says, oh, you cook with love, but it sounds cliche, but it's not. If you care about what you're making, even popcorn will be special.
Ooh, I got to step up my popcorn game. So did you learn to cook from your mom? Did you eventually come around and say, can you show me how to use that pressure cooker?
Oh, no. Here's the problem, that I thought everybody was, taking advantage of her because she was always cooking, but I always wanted to eat. Like, my mom didn't. First, she fed me like formula made with evaporated milk and vanilla extract and brown sugar when I was little. And then she expects me not to be hungry all the time. So I was always in the kitchen trying to steal a bite of this and a bite of that. And because she didn't want me, I know this is all politically incorrect, but she really didn't want me to be overweight. But I was anyway, so she thought that keeping me from the kitchen, I would go in at night and steal food at night. So
Aww.
My interest in food came from a desire to eat often. That's not the case anymore. I get so much out of cooking that has nothing to do with eating. In fact, my friends think that I'm trying to poison them because they always say, why don't you eat your own food? And it's like, trust me, I've eaten it. I don't serve anything that I haven't tasted so many times in between. And I just really love the process. So that's how I started. And then finally she's like, okay, I'm going to teach you because, what am I going to do? I'm not going to keep you away from the kitchen. It became something I absolutely love.
Wow. So you're taught first by yourself and then by your mom. Did you ever go to culinary school or think about doing something like that?
I've taken a few courses, like a knife skills course and stuff like that. And I remember being terrified when I went on Food Network Star, because I was the only one there that wasn't classically trained. I had gone to the Culinary Institute of my mama and that was it. And you know what I discovered? That it was good enough. And in many cases, much better than others. Because I think when you go to school, it limits the parameters of what you think you can do, but when you're cooking like savory food, especially that doesn't require like measuring, like, how you can play piano by ear. I feel that that's how I cook. It's really hard for me to sit down and write down a recipe.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Right. It's very hard.
Because I have also written a cookbook, and we actually have the same editor, Sean Hunter. So shout out to her. Love her. Yep, same publisher, same editor. But I had the same problem. I thought it would be so much fun. And it was kind of a drag because I just want to cook and have music on or be listening to a podcast. I'm helping my kids with their homework. And you actually have to up and write down what you're doing so that other people can replicate it.
You have to. And then I second guess myself and I would test it again because, I like to cook. Like I like to aggressively season food. Like I want it to taste really good. You know what I mean? And that requires maybe more salt or more different things than some people are comfortable with. So I have to find a little middle of the road situation and then tell people adjust to your taste.
Those are the magic words, season to taste. Okay, I do want to ask you one more question about your childhood. So was Spanish your first language? And paint a picture of dinner time for me. Who was at the table? I know you mentioned the pressure cooker, but what was the typical meal?
A typical meal was definitely white rice and then some kind of bean to go over it. And then the protein would be like a Cuban-style roast chicken, a Cuban-style chicken fricassee, like a ropa vieja, which translates to fried cow, but it's like a kind of flank steak that's like a palomilla, which is like a minute steak. That was very common, and then sometimes she would make like these meatballs or she would make, but everything Latin style, like everything with the sofrito and that kind of stuff. And then there was always some kind of fried something because we don't it's not a vegetable unless you fry it. So we would, plantains. And then, as time went by and my parents started getting older, they started worrying about el colesterol. And then they started making plantains boiled or just in the microwave and just with a drizzle, like green plantain or kind of half and half, steamed or cooked that way with a little olive oil and, a little sea salt on top is magical. It does not have to be fried.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole basis of this book, I think, was to kind of make people who were afraid of Cuban food, who think it's all meat-centric, unhealthy, and everything fried. There's a lot in our cuisine that lends itself to other types of nutritional preferences or requirements that people may have.
Yeah. So how did you approach it? Because on one hand, you have these classic Cuban dishes that are not to be messed with, but then you're putting your own spin on them so that they're vegan or keto friendly. Right. How do you know how far you can go before your family revolts?
Right. I have to tell you, this is my fourth Cuban cookbook. So my first book and the second book, I talked about how I would never change Cuban food, the essence of what Cuban food was, that I hated when people added weird sauces like a guava drizzle. It's there's no guava drizzle. Okay.
I love a guava drizzle.
I like a guava drizzle, but it's not part of Cuban food. And so what I did was I searched within my recipes to find things that were by just not including our red beans, right? Our red beans. I love red beans. And my mom used to make them with potatoes and calabaza squash and all that, but they would put chorizo and ham hock and all that. You don't really need to do that, and it's still so nutritious. Beans are so good for you, right? And so there's a lot of things like that. And then maybe ropa vieja, which is that kind of shredded meat in a tomato sauce. We tried it with jackfruit and let me tell you, I was impressed. It was really, really good. I made picadillo, which is our beef hash with ground walnuts.
Ooh, yes.
For the beef. So those are the ones that I went a little far because I made it and I tasted it and I'm you would not miss the meat. There aren't a lot of Cuban vegans out there. I don't think so. Maybe there are. People have changed a lot in what they choose to put in their bodies. So I really wanted to make it accessible to everyone without straying too far from the traditional foods.
For sure. And I have the book here. It's beautiful. The photos are beautiful. I know in the back of the book you said some people think Cuban food doesn't photograph well, but it's so sophisticated. And I really want to try the jackfruit ropa vieja because the cookbook that I wrote is called the Florida Vegetarian Cookbook. And I tried to make a jackfruit ropa vieja and it was a disaster. So that recipe is not in my book. I think, first of all, there was no need for me to buy a whole jackfruit. That was just completely unnecessary. You can go to Publix and get them to cut it. You can buy it in a can. So many other ways.
Yeah.
So many lessons learned. But I think the one I was using was too ripe. And so it was sweet. And that's not
okay.
really what you want. So when I saw yours, I was so excited. I don't need to make that recipe now because you have already perfected it.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to try that. The foreword of the book is written by someone we may have
maybe know her a little bit.
Okay, so tell us who wrote the foreword and how did that relationship come about?
So the foreword is written by Gloria Stefan. I've known Gloria for a long time. You know, if you're in Miami, you kind of you obviously know, you feel like you know them, but I've had the opportunity to really spend time with them. A cousin of mine is very close to the family, and Gloria's just a really regular, like, woman, mom. She wants the same things I want. She has grandchildren. It's just that she is the most approachable person in the world. I just told her, listen, you are the Cuban queen in every way, right? Whether it's music, whether it's, you know, food as well. You know, they have their restaurants. I want everyone to partake in Cuban food, and can you help me get the word out? And she did. She told me, yes, absolutely. You know, she's always really busy, but I'm very proud, to share, you know, a byline with her.
Oh, that's
She's
so
amazing.
great. That's so great. And you mentioned that you are both grandmothers now. You told me before we hit record that you just got back from visiting your new grandbaby.
Yes.
So we have to hear about her, of course. And then has becoming a grandmother changed the way you think about food at all? I feel like the way my mom approached food when I was a kid is a little bit different than how she approaches it now with my kids.
Right. Well, first of all, this is my second grandchild. I have a granddaughter named Lola that lives in LA. She's 2.5. And all I can tell you, she is, she's not going to have any problems in this life. She's just, her personality, she's just so cool. Her mother was born cool and she's cool. My nerdy daughter, which is more like me, is the one that lives in Charlotte. She's a lawyer, and she just had 7 weeks ago, a little baby boy named Preston.
Aww.
And so it's so exciting. I'm spending a lot of time with her. And the way that I think it's changed, like with my daughter in LA, it's an LA thing too. You know what I mean? Like, there is that.
She's eating like wheatgrass.
She won't eat this. She won't eat that. She drinks green juice. Like, you know, that's completely different. And also really having to respect the parents' choices, you know, and everything is like, you know, you don't scold them because you break their spirit. But if she's breaking everything in your house, I'm going to break her spirit. You know what I mean? It's like, it's going to happen. But like when I have her alone, I give her whatever I want.
Aww.
And so when she sees me, I tell her, Lola, you're coming for Christmas. And I go, no rules. She goes, no rules.
Aw. What's something you give her? Okay. Like my dad would give my kids ice cream for breakfast if they asked. He's just like Santa Claus all the time. So what's something you give her that maybe her mom wouldn't want her to have all the time?
Anything with sugar. So we'll go to the Cuban bakery, or we'll go to, you know, I don't make her have like the oatmeal at breakfast. Not if she wants to have pancakes, like, but you know, she also doesn't live with me. I think like if I lived in the same place, I would be a little bit more concerned about the, you know, feeding kids too much this, too much that. But since I'm returning them to the parents, have
a little fun. What do you like from the Cuban bakery? I mean, you said that your mom was restricting your food or trying to restrict your food. Out of concern for you, but now you're the adult. You get to eat whatever you want. Yeah, and I do. Do you go to the Cuban bakery and get a little treat?
Of course.
What do you like?
I always get a cortadito, which is like a little, you know, it's like Cuban coffee with a little bit of milk.
Very strong.
Very strong. I like it with evaporated milk, steamed evaporated milk. And then I love a pastelito. My favorite is a ham pastelito. Not everybody has them. And then a guava pastelito. There's nothing like a guava pastelito. People think you want it puffy, but I like them a little flat, and that piloto just, oh my God, hot out of the, you know, just made. There's nothing like that. Oh. So I love a Cuban bakery.
I want one right now.
Yeah.
A few years
ago, my order.
That's your go-to. A few years ago, we had Carlos Frias, who's a journalist in Miami. You probably know him. It seems like you know everybody.
I know him very well.
But he said coffee is like the jet fuel of Miami.
It is.
Yeah. And a little goes a long way.
It does. And I forget sometimes how much, and I have not developed that caffeine kind of where it doesn't affect you. Like everyone will go, like after a party or a concert or whatever, people go to Versailles, that restaurant in Miami, and they order café con leche or coffee and toast and this stuff. And it's like, it's 1:00 in the morning. How are you going to sleep? It does nothing to them. And I think it's starting to be that way with me, but I'm very careful because it is strong. Yes. It is strong, but nothing like it.
Yeah,
there's nothing like it.
Okay, I have to back up to something you said earlier because you mentioned that your one daughter's the cool one and you're the nerdy one. And I'm like, there's no way. I mean, if people could see you right now, you look like you're in a fabulous hotel. You're all glammed up, or maybe that's just how you look all the time. I don't know.
No, God, I don't look like this all the time. But yes, I'm when somebody's born like cool, like every movement seems effortless. People just gravitate to them. That's how my second daughter is. My girls are only 11 months apart. And so she's different, looks different than me and then my other daughter. She's more like olive skin and she's really tall. And so we think she's just cool. And then my other daughter she wanted to be a lawyer like me. And she's very just hospital corners, everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be like that. And my other daughter gets everything done and is really good at she's a producer. So, it's different. She's more artsy. Okay. And so right now I kind of relate to both of them because I'm not practicing law anymore. And a lot of what I'm doing is creative, but the one in LA just doesn't think she thinks I don't get it. She's too cool for me.
Okay. Well, you're not too cool for most of us. And a lot of people were very excited that I was going to be chatting with you, including my friend Catherine Pill. She had a lot of Real Housewives related questions that I'm not sure we're going to get to. But she did want to know which Cuban sandwich is the authentic one.
Oh, the Miami one, not the Tampa one.
Oh, wrong answer.
I know, but the problem with the Tampa one is that, there's the Italian influence. And so, look, I've never had it with the salami. I know they put mayo on it, and I'm not against that because I will mix a little bit of mayo with my mustard, and I do think it gives it something, but mayo is one of those polarizing things. You either love it or hate it.
And I do not enjoy it, so we're just going to move on from that question.
Right. Okay.
But I did want to ask you, we're done. It's over. But I did want to ask you, speaking of the Real Housewives, okay, so you have like these parallel tracks in your life. You've got all these different careers that we heard about. But in terms of the cooking and then the reality TV, which came first and did one hinder the other?
Okay, so cooking came first. Way before. I already had 2 books by the time I went on Real Housewives. So the reason I wanted to do it was because I had wanted to start like a food line of sauces and marinades and I had a marinade that I made all the time, like as a young lawyer, busy with 2 little kids to kind of, like as a time saver. And everybody would ask me for this and I was making it in mason jars and, I thought, wouldn't it be great to sell this? Which, by the way, it's not great. It's the hardest career. Like, if I would have stayed practicing law, God, life would be a lot easier. It's very hard to deal with distribution and with all that stuff. It's not an easy business, but it's nice to know that people enjoy it and to have it grow. But that was the reason, and that I wanted to use this platform for that. And so when I went on, I don't know, I was just so normal, A lot of people liked it and related to it because not everybody has to be pulling weaves and flipping tables, but it's not enough. You know what I mean? I was never going to be a career housewife, but it helped a lot, and I don't at all regret it. I regret going back last season for a cameo. That's very regrettable because of the way that it was edited and when you just feel like used, and it was one of those situations. And so that everybody that I'm friends with now, that's former Miami Housewives, it's like, do you think I should go back for a cameo? I'm like, yes, if you think you can get something out of it, but it's not something you go back to. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, I feel like it's something you do once and you use, you parlay it into something else, but you can't go back to that.
Sure.
It's not right for me. And I've done a lot of other reality TV, but this is, it's gotten tough to watch and to partake.
Oh, I don't think I could watch myself because it's all of the editing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's very tough.
It's so ironic that you had decades of culinary experience and then you had to go on a reality show called The Housewives.
Yeah, I know.
Which I don't think anybody on there is really ever cooking anything.
Never.
You get your name out there for your food brand.
I know. It's really weird. I think that because, my tagline had to do with food, it was like, whether in the courtroom or in the kitchen, I bring the heat, And during the show, I was getting divorced and I was leaving the law practice that I shared with my ex-husband. And so I think that people like to see women reinventing themselves. I love the idea that you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. Cooking was my second act. I am doing other things. It feels good to be able to know that you can just kind of switch gears if you want to, but it takes a lot of effort. Sometimes it takes a big pay cut, like it did with me with practicing law, but I definitely don't have any regrets.
That does take a lot of courage. I really admire that. Okay, before I let you go, I have to ask, which housewife would you want to cook dinner for?
You mean of any housewife?
Sure.
In all the franchises? Wow. I think Dolores from New Jersey. I really like Dolores. I think she's cool. I think Erica Jane is a trip. She's a lot, but I like that about her. And then from Miami, nobody.
Oh!
You'd have to watch. No, I mean, former, yes. I love Joanna Krupa. I love Leah Black. I love Karen. I like Nicole. But from no, don't get me near them because, I am not responsible for anything that accidentally falls in the pot.
Ooh, you bring the heat. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. It was so much fun to talk to you. That was author and media personality Ana Quincoces. Her latest cookbook is Modern Cuban, and you can find a recipe from that cookbook on our website, thezestpodcast.com. I'm Dalia Colon. We're going to take a couple weeks to cook up some new episodes for you, but in the meantime, we hope your new year is off to a great start. I produce The Zest with Andrew Lucas and Alexandria Ebron. The Zest is a production of WUSF, copyright 2025, part of the NPR network.